Can't believe I'm finally here. For 5 years I've been wanting to come here. For 5 years it just didn't work out, and I'm finally here. This is so awesome. All right, and I get to go last, which is great because I get to stress out for the whole conference and freak out and, relax afterwards. Then I get fun. All right, so is my slide up? First, I control that. Here we go. Okay, so my name's Derek Sivers, and the reason I'm giving you my email address is because I'm going to tell you a bunch of things, and I'm going to go kind of fast intentionally. So if you have any questions, please send me an email and ask me anything, or if you just want to tell me that I have something in my teeth. Oh, I'm not up on the circle yet. Okay, well, if you see something in my teeth, email me and let me know, or just email to say hello. So my background is I started out as a professional musician. When I was 14 years old, I decided that I wanted to be a professional musician. And deciding this is like deciding that you want to be an entrepreneur, meaning knowing ever since I was 14 that I'm never going to have any job security. I'm never going to have a steady paycheck. In fact, I'll probably never have a job. I'm never going to have insurance, health insurance. I never have, still don't. All these kind of things. And in fact, I think it goes even one step beyond being an entrepreneur because there's no illusion that you're going to get some kind of Series A round of financing. You just know that every dollar you make as a musician is going to be something that you hustled for yourself. So I've been in this mindset ever since then. So occasionally when somebody asks me things like, how did you get the courage to quit your job? I say, I never had a job. In fact, I did quit my last job in 1992. Thank you. Okay. So in 1997, I was a hustling musician in New York City doing whatever it takes to make a buck, and the way you do that is by saying yes to everything and doing everything all at once. And around this time, I recorded my own CD. And I wanted to get it up and selling online, but in 1997, there was nowhere on the internet that would sell your CD for you. So I just thought, all right, how hard could it be to make a little website? And it was kind of hard at the time. So it took like 3 months of work, and there was no PayPal back then, and there was no Amazon, and in order to accept credit cards on a website, you had to pay like $1,000 in setup fees, and it was like 3 months of work, and I had to copy CGI bin Perl scripts out of a book. But after 3 months of hard work, I had a buy now button on my website. It's awesome. So right after doing this, I told a couple of my musician friends in New York that I had done this, and they're like, dude, could you sell my CD through that thing? I was like, yeah, okay, sure, why not? I could do that. And so, like on my band's website, it said, click here to buy my CD or some of my friends. And there were like 3 of my friends down there. And then I started getting these calls like, oh, hey man, my friend Dave said you could sell my CD. I'm like, hey, friend of Dave's is a friend of mine, come on in. And I was just doing this as a favor to friends. But then it grew. So in 1997, it was still just me in my bedroom, but there were about 20 musicians that I took off of my band's website, and I got a little domain that said cdbaby.com, and I put them there. And it was just a little hobby I was still doing for free for friends. It's like part of my giving back to the internet thing, you know? And why is that funny? So by 1999, I had to hire somebody. There was this guy that was painting my house, and I said, dude, you need a little extra work? And he said, sure. I said, do you want to be the VP of my little company? He said, sure. So he actually remained a VP. There's even a Wikipedia page about him you can find. So John Stoip was the first guy I hired in Woodstock, and by that time we had 2,000 musicians, and this is 2 years into doing this thing, right? So by 2002, it was big. I had 8 employees and 20,000 musicians. And I mention this date because this is when it started feeling like it was really turning into something. And every now and then I meet entrepreneurs that are telling me like, hey, I've started this business and it's just not really getting off the ground. And I say, well, how long ago did you start it? And they say, well, it's been like 5 or 6 weeks, man. Something's just not really. And I'm like, come on, it takes a while for these things to get momentum. So by 2007, it was way too big. I had 85 employees, 200,000 musicians, and 2 million customers, and I hated it. It was just too much for me. It just felt like too much responsibility. I always tend to veer towards freedom. So in 2008, I felt done. And it really, for more creative reasons, it felt like I had put the final brushstroke on the painting, and I had nothing more to say, nothing more to do to it, so it felt done. And somebody wanted to buy it, so I said, all right, fine. And I sold it for $22 million, which was kind of weird because I thought I'd have to be an insane person to spend $22 million in my lifetime. So instead, I gave it all away. I started don't clap on. So I started a charitable trust for musicians because to me that just felt like the full circle of life, right? Like all this money came from musicians, now it'll go to the next generation of musicians when I die. Yeah, so that felt good. And why are you listening to me? Am I up there yet? Okay, so, anything in the tea? I really feel like I'm not really very good at business. So I kind of feel a little guilty that I'm going to be telling you to do things that might be insane. But actually, I've really been more like Forrest Gump, where I've just lucked into some lucky things that happened to me, and I just said, okay, at the right time. But I did learn some things along the way, so here they are in 28 minutes and 58 seconds. Number one most important thing is knowing why you're doing what you're doing. Because I've found that most people don't know. They tend to kind of just go with the flow, and social norms are a really, really powerful thing. You're at this conference and you're talking to other people, and even the fact that you're at this conference, you might be at this conference because you think you should be at this conference, and maybe I should get out there and I should be meeting people. But I'll bet you there's probably like 5% of you here. They're like, I hate conferences. I hate people. I don't like being around people. I just want to stay home and be comfy with my tea and make money. Why do I have to go out? And so you need to admit this to yourself instead of just imitating what other people are doing and going with the flow. And I think this also happens with popular books. There'll be a huge book like The 4-Hour Workweek. And you'll read The 4-Hour Workweek and you go, yeah, I really should be learning tango in Argentina. And it's a really well-written book can convince you that this is something you should want. But what you need to avoid is this deathbed regret that you've pursued something that someone said you should want instead of what you really want. And I'm mentioning this first because it's been like one of the most surprising, hardest lessons to learn that I still, like today, have to still get over, is that there are these things that you really think you should be doing, and it's powerful, and it's really hard to admit that you don't like them. So, you need to know what you do like. So for example, here's some options. If you're really into making lots of money, you need to admit that. Or if you really like prestige or fame, or you want to leave a legacy, or if you really just like freedom and having no responsibility, you need to admit that. But the point is, when you look at this, when you choose the thing that you're most into, that means that you need to optimize for that and be willing to let go of the others. And it also means just kind of knowing it so well that you're focused on it and you're willing to not diffuse your energy in trying to do a little bit of this. Like, well, I kind of want to be a little famous and make a little bit of money and leave a little bit of a legacy and get a little bit of freedom. No, you have to know what matters to you the most. For example, if you really want to make a lot of money, one way to do it is by letting go of those others and just letting other people take the spotlight, for example. So I lived in LA for 6 or 7 years, and some of my friends were Hollywood actors that were actually kind of famous. And what surprised me is that they're not rich. We always just kind of assume that anybody you've watched on the big screen has got to be rich, right? But no, a few of them are, but most of them aren't. And it blew my mind until I found out that the richest people in Hollywood are the ones you've never heard of because they've optimized their career for money. They've got the huge house on the hill and nobody knows their name. They're behind the scenes. They let others take the spotlight in return for a little less money. They take no spotlight in return for more money. On the other hand, I lived in New York City for 10 years. And as you go around New York City, you see Trump this, Trump Plaza, Trump Tower. And one time I was even driving way into upstate New York. I was 2 hours outside of the city in the middle of nothing, and there was Trump Park. I was like, come on, guy, really? Like, why does he have this need to put his name on everything? And then I realized, okay, this is actually his measure. He's not trying to make as much money as possible. Because if he wanted to make more money, he would let other companies put their name on his buildings. It would be the Panasonic Plaza or the Sony Tower. But instead, he's decided to optimize for maximum legacy or recognition or fame and chosen to make less money instead. So maybe you want to optimize your life for freedom. This is the one that I liked. It means kind of refusing responsibility and learning to delegate everything. And it means kind of don't let that DIY acronym, don't take it as do it yourself. It's more like decide it yourself and delegate it yourself. But don't do everything yourself. You learn that you just want more freedom. So remember, the point is, no matter which one you choose, people are always going to tell you you're wrong. So I had this all the time with CD Baby, that like I started this little thing as a fun hobby, and I didn't want it to take up too much of my life. I mean, it did anyway, but I was doing it for my reasons, and people would always say, you know, you could be making a lot more money if you would do da-da-da-da-da, and you could do this, and you could raise financing, and you could do that. I said, no, that's not why I'm doing it. And it really helped to just know that in advance. So use this as your compass and optimize your life around it. You just have to do a little soul searching in advance and know that this is what you want. There may be side effects, meaning like you may optimize for fame. You may decide, I really want to be famous, and you can make some money in the meantime, or vice versa. But you need to know ultimately which one is more important to you, so when those decision moments come, you can give one up and choose the one that you already know in advance matters to you. Look at my fancy slide technique. When it turns red, I'm changing the subject. Yeah, PowerPoint. Okay, so nobody knows the future. This was another really hard lesson learned. Everybody's trying to know the future. And I've been at those other seminars. Have you been to those educational panels like South by Southwest where they get like 6 experts up on a table and everybody claims to know the future and they'll tell you what the future is? But nobody actually knows the future. And once you realize this, you can admit that your business plan is moot. I think there's this emphasis for entrepreneurs that you got to have a business plan and make this 5-year plan and know where it's going. But here's proof that all business plans are moot, because I'll bet you every business plan you've ever seen, it has that little chart of projected earnings, and it always goes up and to the right. Every single one of them does that, but most businesses don't actually. So that's how you know they're fiction. It's moot. Everybody says it. So instead, I think what's really important is to not commit to one idea of the future that you have, but instead commit to a problem that you want to solve. And then you can stay committed to the problem and continually try to find the ongoing and ever-changing answer to that problem. But stay committed to the problem and don't attach yourself too much to any given answer that you've come up with at any point. Because no plan survives first contact with the customer. That no matter what you've planned in your bedroom or here at the conference, when you go out and try it and you get the first person and you say, hey, do you want to sign up for my new thing? And they'll say, no, but actually what I'd like to pay you for instead is doing this. And you say, oh, all right, never mind, I could do that. You know, so my little example is when I first started CD Baby, it was meant to be a payment processor. Meaning, like again, PayPal didn't exist yet. So there was literally like nowhere that you could use to charge somebody's credit card. And so that's really what my musicians friends were asking me to do. They were like, can you charge people's credit card for me and then I'll ship the CD to them? So that's what I was doing for the first month. I was just charging people's credit cards. But then a guy from the Netherlands came in and bought one of my friend's CDs, and I shipped it off to the Netherlands. And a week later, he came back and emailed me saying, hey, where are your new arrivals? I said, what do you mean, like what friends am I now processing credit cards for? And he said, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were a record store. And I went, a record store? Ooh, that's a nice idea. I could be a record store. And so just like that, my plan completely changed. I'm like, yes, I'm going to be a record store. Month number 2, everything changed. And so for the next 6 years, CD Baby was a great online record store, and it became the largest seller of independent music on the web. And everything was going really well until one day, 6 years into it, Apple had just opened the iTunes music store like a few weeks before. And we get an email from Apple's office saying, could you please come to our office at 1 Infinite Loop in Cupertino for a private meeting. This is, do not tell anybody about this. Please come next Thursday. So I showed up, and it was a little tiny room like the size of this stage, and there were a few dozen of us there. And Steve Jobs walks out in full presentation mode. I was like, whoa. And he gave this whole pitch about how he wanted to get every piece of music ever recorded up and selling in the iTunes music store, including these independent artists that nobody had heard of. I was like Forrest Gump, right? I was like, okay. And just like that, I was now a distributor. So everything changed, and now I'm a digital distributor, and then CD Baby became the largest digital distributor of music, and when you would hear things like, remember Rhapsody or Napster, and they would say, we have a catalog of 4 million songs. Well, guess what? 2 million of those came from me. So that was, CD Baby became a digital distributor. The point is, once you've realized this a few times and you've had it happen to you, you can just admit in advance, nobody knows. And when people ask you, like, so tell me about this business you're working on. How does it work? You say, I don't know. Well, we'll find out. We'll see. You know, I've got a plan, but so what? Nobody cares. And I think this puts you into a better mindset, because when you admit that nobody knows, you start to ask more questions instead of being such a know-it-all. And you learn more instead of constantly preaching at people. You see those people, they're often these Silicon Valley types, that they've decided what the future is going to be, and they will tell everybody that will listen as if saying it enough is going to make it true. But instead, if you just admit, I don't know, I'm committed to the problem, I'd love to keep hearing different solutions. Look, I'm changing the subject. Okay, so, revolution. When I first started CD Baby, like most of you, around the second month where the guy from Netherlands told me I'm a record store, and I said, I'm a record store, I didn't know what to charge for this service. So, like all of us, you never know what to charge. So what I did is, I walked down to my local record store, and it was a tiny little record store, and I know that they had some consignment CDs up on the counter of some local musicians from town. And I said, so how does it work if I want to sell my CD through you? And she said, oh, it's easy. You set your selling price at whatever you want. We just keep a flat $4 per CD sold, and then just come in no more often than once a week, and I'll be happy to pay you. So I went home to my new website, and I was like, you set the selling price at whatever you want. We keep a flat $4 per CD sold, and we'll pay you once a week. I was like, it works for her. It'll work for me. It doesn't really need to be more complicated than that. The only thing I had to add is that because, she would just kind of plop something into the bin, but for everybody that mailed me a CD, I actually had to Photoshop it, and I had to fix the spelling mistakes in their bio, and I had to rip the MP3s from their CD. So it took about 45 minutes to do the work. So I thought, I'd want about, for my personal fee, give me $25, that'll compensate me for 45 minutes. And at the last minute, I changed it to 35 so that I could afford to give discounts. And so those two numbers, the $35 to add a CD and $4 per CD sold, that was it. That was my entire business model for 6 years. That took me from 0 to 10 million in revenue, just that. There was no more to it than that. No fancy business plans, no nothing, that was it. And the musicians would get paid every week. But in the music business, this was kind of unusual. To me, it seemed to make common sense. I've already charged the customer's credit card, I've already shipped it out, the money's here, why not pay the musician every week, right? But in the music business, that was kind of unusual, because the way it worked before is that you would ship your CDs off to a distributor, and then a year later, you might get paid, if ever. So the funny thing is, I kept doing this for years and years and years, and 5 years after I began, we started to get a lot of press where people were saying, it's revolutionizing the music industry, it is changing the way music is bought and sold. And they used words like revolution, which I learned they only call it a revolution once you're successful. Before that, you're just some nut. And then, So, but here's the real point, is that I think a lot of us are kind of surrounded by businesses and startups. If you read things like TechCrunch and Hacker News, you're surrounded by businesses that are all proclaiming to be revolutionary. And everybody's, we're going to revolutionize this, we're going to disrupt this industry, we're going to destroy this. It's all destroy and disrupt and everything. And so you get this impression that for you to start some kind of business, oh my God, you are going to have to revolutionize everything. Otherwise, it's not worth it. But if you think that love needs to look like Romeo and Juliet, with stabbings and poison and balconies and, then you might overlook a great relationship that grows slowly and just isn't quite as, drama addicted. And if you think that revolution needs to have war and blood and innovation and disruption, then you might overlook the idea that it's just simply serving people better. And often that's all there is to it. So I've found that the ideas that turned out to be revolutionary years later after they're successful, remember? At first, they just seem like uncommon sense. It's like you're doing something in a way that to you just feels like stupidly obvious. Like, this is a better way of doing it. I'm able to avoid all of this other bureaucracy and doing it nice and simple. And if you just keep doing this and you're successful, they say you've started a revolution. If it's not a hit, switch. This was a hard lesson learned. For 12 years, as a professional musician, I tried everything. I started a recording studio. I was a session musician. For a year, I was the guitarist for a Japanese pop star named Ryuichi Sakamoto. For 10 years, I was in a circus. I was the ringleader MC of a circus. I had a duo called the Professional Pests, where I would run around inside a black shadow bag and bother people for money. I started a record label. I put out a couple friends' records on my record label called Artificial Records. I started a booking agency where I would book other friends into the college market. I would book myself as a solo artist into the college market. I had a 5-piece funk band called Hit Me that would play the college market. I did all of this stuff, and then one silly little hobby I started was called CD Baby. It was like one of many, many things I did. But the difference is, whereas all of those other things I had been doing for 12 years felt like an uphill battle, right? Like everything was hard and it was always uphill, and it's like every door was locked and nothing was going right for me. But when I started CD Baby, it felt like I had written a hit song. Like suddenly everything was easy. It was just like rolling downhill, and all of the doors were unlocked and everything was going my way. And every now and then people would ask me like, so what were the biggest struggles you had when starting CD Baby? I'd say, nothing. There were like no obstacles. Nothing. There seriously weren't. Like, just everything went my way. And now I know the difference. I know the difference because I felt what it was like doing 12 years of having everything work the opposite, where everything felt hard. So, my advice is, If people aren't loving what you're doing, just stop. And don't persist and don't push it. And I know this is like really contrarian advice, but the thing is, I was in the music business for so long that I met a lot of songwriters. And there are some songwriters, it's kind of cute as a speaker, you know you've made a good point when you see a bunch of phones go up. Click a look. Yeah, Instagram that, baby. Okay, so, I know a lot of songwriters, and there's a certain kind of songwriter that would have one song that they believed in, and god damn it, they would like try to push down every door getting their one song, like they believed like this one song should be recorded by this artist, or this one song is a hit, and they would just spend like years and years trying to get momentum for one song, and it just wasn't happening. Whereas the successful songwriters I know, they would just keep writing and writing and write new songs every week, and then something they wrote a year and a half ago would suddenly get placed into a movie and be a huge hit, but they just kept going. So my point is, even if you've got an idea that you feel is brilliant, if you keep trying it out on people and it's just not clicking, just let it go and write another song and keep moving. You'll know when you're onto something great because people will be freaking out. And I mean really freaking out. Not like, hey man, what do you think of my business idea? And people go, yeah, sounds pretty cool. Let me know how that goes. That's not enough. Like, that doesn't count. In fact, what they've just given you is a polite, like, nah. Because if they were really into it, they would say, like, oh my God, yes, here's some money right now. Take it. I need this thing immediately. Can I please be your first customer? Like, seriously, can you do this for me right now? If they say this, then you know you're onto something. But if it's anything less than that, don't keep pushing this idea. Just stop and change and write a different song. So the lesson learned is success comes from persistently improving and inventing, but not persistently pushing what's not working. I think we're always told that, there's cameras, thank you. I think we're told that we should all be like persistent, right? Perseverance, persistence. but it's a slightly different definition. You can't just keep doing the same thing and then get mad at the world that they're not seeing your vision. You have to like constantly adjust and try different things. So, version 0.1. So I met this I met a guy at a music conference once, that just meeting lots of people, and I said, hey, what are you working on? And he said, I am building the ultimate music recommendation engine. It is going to be the ultimate thing. It's going to tie into all of your social networks and all of your friends. It is going to be the ultimate music recommendation that's going to listen to everything that you've ever streamed, everything in your hard drive and everything on all of your devices. It is going to be the ultimate music recommendation. The thing is, I've been working on this project for 2 years. I've been pitching this idea for 2 years, but it's going to take $2 million to make it. I've got it all specced out, but the cost to make this thing will be $2 million. So for the last 2 years, I've been trying to meet investors. Do you know any investors? And I went, oh God, okay, hold on. I said, what kind of music would I like? And he said, what? I said, you said you want to start a music recommendation service, so what music would I like? He said, no, man, this isn't about that. No, this isn't like this and that. Man, we're building a whole enterprise backend. This thing is going to be huge. It's going to be the biggest thing ever. I was like, yeah. Okay, but look, even elephants are born small, right? So you have to start with something. So if you want to start something, you know how they have software version numbers, right? Like software version 1.0, version 3.5. I said, what you've just described to me is like, that's version infinity. That is the glorious future of your idea, where everything has worked out perfect. And that is like a decade into the future, that's where your big idea will be. But as of right now, what you need is like version 0.1. And version 0.1 is the thing that you can do right now with a piece of paper and quit making excuses that you're looking for investors. And so, like, we're just sitting there in this like music convention. Oh, thank you. That's why I love Chris's $100 startup book. I love that. So we were at this music conference, and I said, here, excuse me, but just watch. And I said, excuse me. I said, what kind of music do you like? And the guy said, me? I said, yeah. What kind of music do you like? He said, Bjork. I said, have you heard Leaky Lee? He said, no. I said, check it out. Let me know what you think. He said, all right. Now, I just began a music recommendation service. You know? So I think when you have this idea, I mean, I'm guessing that this kind of crowd, it's like, we're not at TechCrunch right now. So I'm guessing that this kind of crowd, you've got your feet on the ground. You know this kind of stuff I'm saying. But it just pains me when I see people that spend all their time like trying to raise money, whereas that same amount of time could be spent actually doing something. And the 2 years that this guy has spent trying to raise money could have been 2 years spent just with like a piece of paper, talking to real people. What kind of music do you like? Okay, did you like Leaky Lee? Was she good? Oh, no, you didn't? Okay, all right, noted. You could just then eventually you put it into a spreadsheet, then maybe you put it into a computer, then maybe you build a website for it, then maybe you give it a name, and then maybe people can log in. But you can just start with like this now. So the first version of CD Baby did almost nothing. It was like, I didn't know programming at the time, and I made it in 6 days. It was like a one-page website that had 20 of my friends, each one with a little button next to it that said add to cart. And check this out. This is so, like, I would never have admitted this at the time, but, you know. When you would type in your credit card info and click buy, all it would do is just email it to me. It would email your raw credit card info to me, and I would highlight my mouse and copy and paste every single field. I'd highlight my mouse over first name, Control-C, Alt-Tab, Control-V, Control-C, Alt-Tab, Control-V, Control-C, Alt-Tab, Control-V. Because the deal is, I was only getting like 3 orders a week, right? So there was no need to build some big damn system, and it got me started. I started it in 6 days, and it was profitable in 6 weeks. My biggest startup expense, you know, when you have to get the SSL certificate so you can have an HTTPS, that was $375, those fuckers. So everything after that was profit. I made $400 after 6 weeks, and then I was profitable. But there's a great quote from, I think it's Reid Hoffman, who started LinkedIn, that says something like, if you're not launching too soon, or I think he might have said, if you're not embarrassed by your first launch, then you've launched too late. I really like that idea. All right, ideas versus execution. I had this friend once that did that social thing that I hate, where he emailed me with his friend in CC, and he said, hey, Derek, I've got this friend. He's got a $1 billion idea. I want you to hear it. So Derek, meet Jeff. Jeff, meet Derek. The two of you talk. This is going to be great. Go. I was like, okay. Hi, Jeff. What's this idea of yours? He said, I've got this $1 billion idea, man. He said, but this thing is so big, I need you to sign an NDA before I can tell you. I was like, I was like, okay, my nice friend introduced us. Like, okay, here's your NDA, fax it back to you. There, what? And he said, okay, you ready? Okay, what's this big idea? Online dating with music. And I said, yeah? And he said, dude, online dating with music. And I said, is there any more to this? Okay, all right, you've got me. I'm listening. What are the details? He said, dude, online dating with music. This thing is a $1 billion idea. So I just figured, I'm the idea guy. You can just make, you know programming. You can do this thing. So you can make it happen. We can just split the profits 50-50. I was like, really? Okay. So I said, okay, hold on. Let me explain something. Ideas are just a multiplier of execution. Let's say this chart that let's give a bad idea a -1 rating, but a weak idea is a 1, an average idea is a 5, a good idea is a 10, a great idea is a 15, an amazing idea is a 20. But then execution. Say no execution, let's say $1 to be nice. Weak execution, $1,000. Average execution, $10,000. Good execution, $100,000. Great execution, $1 million. Amazing execution, $10 million. The point is that to make a business, you need to multiply the two sides. So, for example, if you have an amazing idea but no execution, it's not worth anything. Like, you haven't done anything. This is worthless. Like, okay, I'll pay for the Cokes we're drinking right now. You haven't done anything. It's just an idea. It's not worth anything. On the other hand, if you had a good idea and you've actually gone and made it happen in a pretty good way, you could maybe make $1 million. And if you have an amazing idea, and if you have an amazing team and you do great execution, you could maybe make $20 million. But this is why I never want to hear people's ideas when they do this thing about, I've got this great idea. I'm like, nah, I don't want to hear your ideas. Just let me see your execution. It's just a multiplier. So on that note, in my last few minutes, I'm going to tell you specifically, since I've been talking in kind of vague terms and stories, I'm going to tell specifically the most successful things we did at CD Baby. These are the things that either made the most money or I noticed made the most people ecstatically happy. The first one, believe it or not, is that we answered the phone. And yeah, that's right. Applaud me for answering the phone. Yes, yes. It is a genius revolution I started. Have you tried my famous peanut butter and jelly? So you'd think that this would be obvious, right? But I think there's so many people that in their heads, they're already like this $1 billion business, and hey man, answering the phone doesn't scale, so we're gonna try to make it so that nobody can contact us. You just use our online forums. But because of this, it kind of blew my mind that whenever I would go to music conferences, and I would overhear one musician telling another, especially like in the early days where not a lot of people had heard of CD Baby yet. Like this guy would say like, oh man, you're not on CD Baby yet? They'd say, dude, CD Baby is awesome. You know what? They answer the phone. You can call them and they answer. You can talk to a real person. They're like, no way. Yeah, way. Amazon won't do that. And that, like, they weren't talking about, my cool graphic design or my fancy, CSS style sheets on my website. No, none of the other stuff mattered. We answered the phone. And that was enough to get his friend to sign up. The other one was that a geeky little thing I just did for fun one day is it only took like 2 lines of computer code to intercept outgoing emails and put the person's first name into the from header, not just the to header. So if an email was going to Sarah, for example, it would say the email was from CD Baby Loves Sarah. And it's just the tiniest little geeky thing I did once just to make myself laugh, but people would reply back going, did you just really, you guys are crazy. And then they would forward it to friends, and friends would tell friends, and friends would come and buy CDs from us just because of this stupid little thing. So a fun one was I had a policy that changes need pizza. And the reason for this is because every time a new album came into the store, it would take like 45 minutes of work, right? To lay it on the scanner, scan the album art, Photoshop it, drop the CD into the bin, rip it fully, and then take the little clips and do all this stuff and fix their bio. And every now and then somebody would contact us like 2 weeks later and say, could I change my choice? I want to send you a different album art cover, or I want to change the way my tracks are done. And I'd say, all right, no problem, just send us a pizza. And they'd say, what? And I'd say, yeah, just, look, we're happy to do it. It's kind of a pain in the ass. We're going to have to go out to the warehouse and find your CD. If you don't mind, just send us a pizza, and we're happy to do it. And they'd say, you're serious? I'm like, I'm serious. Here's the phone number of the local pizzeria. They know us. Just tell them I want to buy CD Baby a pizza. They already know our favorite pizza, so you just call them up with your credit card, say, I want to get CD Baby a pizza. The pizza shows up. We'll do anything you want. And so we did. So the real point is this is humanizing. I think too many of us start businesses and you want it to look big, and you start to say things on your website like we instead of I, right? Even though it's just you. And we try to do these things to like make it look corporate, but when you do these things to humanize it and remind people, there's just a real person back here. We're just real people like with a lot of work. So get us a pizza, we'll do it. People love that. I mean, seriously, I would overhear this at conferences, like, oh my God, dude, you have to sign up to CD Baby. Why? Dude, they changed my album because I sent them a pizza. No way. Yeah, way. You gotta sign up. Okay. So another one I really liked is sending customer comments to the musicians. So at the end of an order, I just left, after you've typed in your name and your address and your credit card, I'd leave a blank field asking two things. Number one was, please let the musician know where you heard of them. And people would actually write things like, hey, I saw you playing on the 3rd Street Promenade and loved your music but didn't have any money that day, so I went and Googled you later and found you, and here I am. Or I heard you on KEXP radio, and I thought you guys were awesome, but I missed your name, so I called the station and they told me you, and I found your address. I'm a big fan. And I would forward these comments to the musicians, and I would hear, like years later, people would tell me like, hey, do you know what? Like, it was because of you that I booked an entire tour through Japan. And I'd say, what do you mean? He'd say, well, one of those comments you forwarded me from some customer in Japan, like, we got in touch because he left a nice comment, and he's a big fan, and he booked a whole tour for us, and like, all because of that. So the second thing that I would add, like, so below, it would say, where did you hear of this artist? And then below it would say, do you have any special requests? And I put in parentheses saying, yes, anything. So one time, like, most people would leave this blank because they would look at it saying, no, I don't know, nothing. But one guy once wrote, yeah, in fact, I would like some cinnamon gum. And so one of the guys in the warehouse was just about to go do a run and get some gas and go to the store anyway. So he was like, dude, get some cinnamon gum while you're there. It's like, all right. So he comes back and they put this order aside, and so when he came back with the cinnamon gum, bloop, he put it in there, we sent it to the customer, and he was like, no fucking way. And so he wrote a blog post about it, and like, you know, thousands of people read this, and thousands of people heard about CD Baby because of. Bloop. So then we got this other one. A guy bought a CD where the album cover was like a picture of a guy's face with like a squid on his head like that. And so the customer comment at the end said, it said, would you, any special requests? And he said, yes, I would like a plastic squid with my order. Or if you do not have a plastic squid, a regular squid will do. Well, guess what? Some guy in Korea, a musician, had sent us a box of CDs, and as a special gift, maybe, you know, because he couldn't send a pizza, he sent us shrink-wrapped squid in like a frozen, you know, plastic bag. And the guys at the warehouse like thought it was funny, and so they had kept it tacked up on the wall for a while. It's just like a little comedy piece along with Danny DeVito pictures or whatever. And so they're like, dude, somebody wants a squid. I'm like, bloop. And they dropped the squid in with the order, and the guy got it, and he's just like, oh my God. And so if you go onto YouTube, actually I gave a short link to it. My web address is sivers.org, right? So if you go to sivers.org/squid, it will redirect you to the YouTube page that this guy made. He made like a 7-minute long YouTube video telling his story about how he requested the squid, and it showed up. And this thing has been viewed thousands of times. And so people ask every now and then, like, hey, I've got this startup, but how do I really get traction for it? I'm like, bloop. Yeah. All right. So I've just found from experience that people remember you more for all of these little ways you make them smile than all of the other tech stuff you do, and all the way that you have your MongoDB database and sharded across something, 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 and you think that you need to do Ruby on Rails, you need to do Node.js, and it has to be the fan. All of that stuff doesn't matter as much as just these little things you do to make people smile. So I think it's important to be so unusual or remarkable that everyone tells their friends. And notice, by the way, that the word remarkable is actually contained of two words. It's remar and couple. So the point is to be shockingly unique. Just use uncommon sense. All of these things don't need to feel like a revolution. They'll just be surprisingly simple. It'll seem like, of course we should ask the customers what they want and let them choose anything. Of course we should pick up the phone, etc. So anyway, please write down my email address. Send me an email. Say hi. You guys are my kind of people, though I've been stressed out and practicing my talk for the last 2 days, so I haven't met most of you. So please email me and say hi. Thanks.